And I think people need to know that it takes time to build something. But once you've built something solid, I'm almost 6 years in, and I wouldn't trade that 1 year that was really hard when I was starting. I wouldn't trade that in for my corner office in the high rise, because now I get to have so much freedom with having this business. There's just so many things that I get to do I couldn't do if I had one of those corporate jobs, which is great if you're a corporate person, but it's just not for me.
Welcome to Business Origin Stories. I'm Amy Schutte, your guide to crafting a magnetic message for a profitable business. This is the podcast for you if you're ready to claim the transformative power of your own origin story and use it to create a brand that finally stands out. We're here to level up, but more importantly, I'm here to help you elevate your influence, your community, and your impact on the world. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. And remember, the stories you tell yourself are your greatest currency. Today I'm talking to Brittney, who is the founder and owner of Silverleaf Office. She's a Minnesota-based accountant providing bookkeeping services to photographers and other creatives. She loves Jesus, family, cats, and pasta, in that order, and can often be found listening to an audiobook while crunching numbers for her client. Her favorite part of being an accountant is watching her clients have breakthroughs, like paying themselves consistently and not being stressed at tax time. I'm so excited to talk about all the things. But before we go into that, I want to know where you are right now. Where are you?
Where I am. Specifically, I'm in my office. Not specifically, I live in Minnesota. That's where I was born and raised, and I pretty much lived here my whole life. So
yeah, you always post like beautiful nature pictures. You seem like you're outside a lot doing beautiful things. And Minnesota, I've only been to Minnesota once, but it was in the winter. And so it was cold, but the people, I was there for a conference, and then I met up with some other people that I just knew that lived there, and they told me all about ice fishing, and it seemed very cultural, but they were like, yeah, we drive our like big like RVs out on the lake. Like you can order pizza to your ice fishing.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It is a whole thing. They set up like little villages. They're like campers, basically, out on the ice, little villages. And yes, you can have pizza delivered. Now, I'll admit, I am not an ice fisher woman.
Yeah, I figured you were probably not. I went ice fishing this year for the very first time. We were bad. We didn't catch anything. But whenever I think of Minnesota, I think of, the pizza people with their ice fishing buses, which is my deal. But now I want everyone to think about that in Minnesota. And I also want them to think about you in Minnesota now, because I'm so excited for this interview. This is going to be so fun.
Me too.
Well, can you tell us, Brittney, what problem you're solving for your clients? Let's just start there. What do you do? What are you bringing to the world?
Yeah, so I am an accountant, and more specifically, I do bookkeeping. So that means that at tax time, you just get a little handy report from me to forward to your tax accountant. That's literally how easy I can make your financial life, your business financial life. That's one of the main things. I also really like helping people to save for taxes. You'd be surprised, people don't save. Like, your business should be earning enough to help you pay for those taxes. You shouldn't have to pull from someone, like if you have a spouse with a job, you shouldn't have to pull from their salary to pay those taxes. That's a huge thing for me. Another one is pay yourself. Now, you'd be surprised at how many people just don't pay themselves. So that is another huge thing. I'm like, you have a business so you can get paid. Please pay yourself. Here, let's plan. So that's another big thing that I help people with.
Those are huge things. And it's one of the reasons why we originally got connected. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's 2023 as we're recording this, there's so many people that are moving into the space of small business. They know they're good at something, or they have something they want to bring, but a lot of people don't have strong business backgrounds, or that's not their thing. They just know they want to be in this realm. And so they start doing something. And then I think there's this point where they go, oh, money and tax and like, what am I doing? And, we see like the statistic is 45% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years. And I think probably a lot of that comes down to the financial health of their business, not having someone like you in their corner
So that's really what I want to talk about today, because I started working with you. I went back in my files. We started working together 4 years ago, but it was right after kind of my first year in business. I got QuickBooks. I thought I was doing everything. I had like my CPA friends kind of checking in. And then it came close to tax time, and my accountant was, he wasn't super dialed in for entrepreneurs. He was like, eh. And then eventually I was like, I think I need help. Like, it was keeping me up at night. So I found Lydia. We connected. And so she was like the cleanup girl. She went into my QuickBooks. She cleaned everything up. It was like a no shame game. She was the kindest, most considerate human. And then she was like, and now you need Brittney, and you need a bookkeeper. And I know that your business, this is not the first hire you want to make necessarily, but like, you got to do this. And so you came on. I consider you part of like a very integral part of my team. And that's when we started working together. And it's made the stress relief. Like you were saying at text time, like basically you just send me stuff and I take it to my account. You're magical. I always call you the QuickBooks queen, but you are magical. So, but I want to talk about that. When in a business, or how often do you see when people come to you that they've been living in financial chaos for too long? Or like, at what point should people bring in a dedicated bookkeeper to their business?
Yeah. So just before I answer that specific question, is that bookkeeping is like it's a very important tool for your business. It's not just something that you have to do for taxes. And I think that keeping track of it through the year helps you to be a better business owner, because it helps you make smart business decisions rather than just kind of guessing. You look at your bank account and you're like, well, I think I can afford that. That'll work. And you have no clue how much money you're making. So that is like the important piece of it. Now it flows into, when do you hire? There are some people who just have kind of a knack for the numbers and they can manage their QuickBooks. And I would say, go ahead, keep managing. That's great. But when it starts taking up too much of your time, or if you're really serious about your business growing and you need to put effort into what you're actually in business for, so whatever, marketing, photographer, whatever that is important to focus on why you went in business. So if it's the other piece is, there are people who are confused and overwhelmed and up late at night, like Amy said she was. You don't have to take that burden on. Like, go get another client so that you can afford a bookkeeper to take that off your plate. And the relief that people email me and message me about all the time, it has to be worth it, because just like the stress release that I see, and the people come to me with, they come actually with a lot of shame and confusion, which I'm like, no, please just tell me everything. I do not judge you. I'm not here to say, oh, you're doing this wrong and that wrong. It's like, hey, let's get on a right track together. I think that's a big piece. And also, if you are doing the tax season mad dash, where it's April 1st and you just gather everything from the year before and you're trying to throw it together for your tax accountant, please hire someone. Your tax accountant will thank you. You'll thank yourself the next year. I think those are the main points. Like, whenever the pain becomes too great, go find someone to help you. You don't have to do it alone. You can have help.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, that overwhelm, at least for me, because I was really good at what I was doing. And, pretty quickly in business, I started bringing in, great income. And then, but it was like, okay, and now I need to figure out some of this stuff. So it was, this is not a pain point this is a pain point I see over and over with my clients. They come to me for marketing and messaging and business coaching. And always we end up talking about financial frameworks and the financial health in your business, because so many people are operating in a way that's just chaotic, right? Because it's the last thing they want to think about and they just kind of want to put it aside. So, but like you said earlier, the tax preparation, also making smart decisions in your business, really, there's kind of the start of business where you're just trying to figure things out, but then that next level of business, right, where we're all like moving our businesses up towards $1 million or multi-million dollar, whatever level you're really working toward. that's when you start getting more savvy and you really need to be looking at those numbers and paying yourself better and, using your CPA and your bookkeeper and your financial advisor, to really help you build a life that you love. But can you talk about that piece about what do you love to teach your clients, or what ahas do you have with your clients? You're like, here's how you can use these numbers each month or each quarter, whenever they're getting their bookkeeping from you, to really be thinking more strategically about your business.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I send all my clients is like a little financial review, like right in the email. So even if they don't open the financials that I send, at least they know how much money they made last month and what their expense total was and how much they paid themselves. So those three numbers, if they look at nothing else, they can see that and they can see trends. So that's a big thing, I think, especially for seasonal businesses. You and I kind of aren't in the more seasonal, but like photography, big time seasonal thing. So they are seeing these big months where they're making a lot of money because it's busy, but then they see like the quiet time. And it's like, okay, how do I prepare in the busy season for the quiet time? And I think that's one of the things that I like them to use the financial statements for, and this information that I give them, be like, don't take the busy season and think this is your new normal. It's not. You're going to have January, February, whatever, when their quiet season is, and you're going to need to plan for that. So how can we use it to plan? So that's a big thing, planning ahead. And then the other piece is expenses. The easiest way to make more money usually is to cut expenses. It's hard to get a client, but it's easy to cancel a subscription. So I think that's a big thing that gets overlooked because they're like, oh, it's just a small expense. And I think Benjamin Franklin says small leaks sink great ships. So it's like a little expense will sink your business, and it will over time because they add up. A lot of little ones add up. So I really like people at least quarterly to go through and see what are they paying for and are they actually using it? And is it delivering something to the client? That's the other thing. If it's just something that, I don't know, is not delivering something directly to the client or not helping you run your business smoother or learn something yourself, then why is it sticking around? Let it go. Those are some of the big things that you can do with seeing your stuff monthly. So I work primarily with people monthly. That is kind of the transformation that you can have when you are seeing everything. Because a lot of times, like we said, you just sweep it under the rug and you're like, I don't want to look at it. It's scary or it's embarrassing or I don't even know what to do. So instead, face it. And that's the first step. Face it.
That's great advice. I think a lot of us can get stuck there. But one thing you said, it's having the plan. And I think that goes into not even for the quiet seasons, because if your business is rolling like a service-based business like ours, where it's just, constant, maybe there's not a quiet season, but there is tax time and there is paying yourself monthly, or it is preparing to bring on a team member or some of these other things. How do you really help people? I know I love the profit first method, but what do you kind of help recommend with your clients where you're saying this is how you can start really preparing and putting things aside in a way that makes sense for your business so you can go do these awesome things that you're planning on or pay taxes without feeling the stress, right? Because that's a big deal too.
Oh, yes. So especially for the hiring someone, whether it's a contractor or an employee, if you're scared at the beginning, it's kind of scary. You're like, can I even afford this? Before you go out and make the hire or find the contractor, figure out kind of what your budget is for that and put it aside in a separate bank account. Just open an account for saving and just whatever that amount is per month. I don't know, $2,000 a month. You just put that in there and you just see, how does it feel now that I'm paying someone? It's the fake person in the bank account, but you get an idea of what it's like to have to pay that every month. And then when you actually do hire, you leave that money in that account as a savings, like a backup plan in case something goes in your business, like you lose a client, and then it gives you a little cushion to when you hire. So you don't have as much stress, because it's stressful to hire. It's hard because you're doing all these interviews and trying to find the right fit. So that's stressful enough. Let's take the stress off the financial side by planning ahead. That's a big one. Was there another part of that? You said hiring.
Well, and same for taxes, but I want to come back to that piece of it because I think that's really smart. Create a separate bank account, start putting in whatever you think you'd be paying that contractor or your future employee. How long, Brittney, do you recommend that people do that? Do you think like a 3-month runway is long enough to start feeling the burn? Does that feel good?
3 to 6 months is generally good. I would say 3 is fine, unless you're seasonal and you're doing it in the busy season. You just want to make sure. But 3 months is typically what I say.
Okay. And then taxes. I mean, that's always, whenever I post about Profit First or some of these things, I always get DMs from people that are like, this is an overwhelming time for me right now. And I'm always like, you got to call Brittney. But anyway, it seems to, it's just a pain point that a lot of people have. But as far as the tax piece goes, especially as your business is expanding or up leveling, and maybe you're making a lot more this year than you did last year, how do you help people prepare for that so that tax season doesn't feel hard or stressful?
Yeah, the biggest thing, I have my clients go find a CPA or a tax professional who understands small businesses. That's the thing. I remember I don't know if it was you or someone said, oh, my tax account just doesn't get me. He's not paying me any attention because I'm too small, he says. I'm like, no, you are important enough to have someone who pays attention to you. So find someone. You need a bookkeeper, you need a tax person. They work together. And the piece that I always hand off to the tax accountant is, here's the numbers. Tell my client how much they need to send in for estimated taxes. Give them I think they're called vouchers. They get printed off from the CPA. You just write your check or go online and make that amount every time it's due. The tax accountant should be telling you, here's how much we need to be paying in. And then also, like, Profit First, I love Profit First too. The book by Mike Michalowicz, everyone, go read it. It changes the way that you manage your business money. But he recommends putting 15% of your gross revenue, so before expenses, into a savings account. So every time you're paid, put 15% of that in the account to save for taxes. So that way, when you pay your estimates, you pay it from there. And when you pay your tax bill in April, it comes from there. Now that number can fluctuate depending on a lot of things, and I'm no tax professional to give you advice, but that's a good place to start.
Yeah, that tax account, and if you haven't read the Profit First book, like Brittney said, go get it. It's really good. Even if you just read the very basic, like the first, 5 chapters, Brittney, because it starts getting more advanced in business. But basically, he really encourages people to set up different bank accounts so that you can actually see. And then when you get money in from work, you allocate it to different bank accounts based on certain percentages in your business. And as soon as I started doing that, it changed so many things for me. And then eventually you can start getting more advanced and have different bank accounts for, setting up for a contractor, or I have, I call it my abundance account, where I put money in that I love to use for different generosity things that come up. But, there's just different things where it feels so good to be able to see it in a bank account versus just looking at a profit and loss statement or trying to figure it out if it's not the world that you are used to living in. You should get good at that world, right, Brittney? Like, that's part of making these good decisions as a business owner. But in that process, or if you're moving fast, it's really helpful to use a method similar to that.
Well, he talks about in the book, like, the psychology. People want to log into their bank and see their account and how much money is in it, and then they make financial decisions based off that. So instead of seeing everything in one account, his philosophy is to divide it up into the smaller accounts, so this is how much is available for my expenses and this is how much is for taxes. So everything has its place and every dollar is told where to go. And it's a very practical way to manage your money. Totally. I love Profit First, and I like helping my clients figure out how to use it after they've read it.
Yeah, it's becoming more of a thing. When I started, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever year this is, it was, I remember like taking it to my accountant at the time and being like, okay, here's this. And he was just like, what? He, it was not a thing. But I think as it's become really a big deal for entrepreneurs. And I like to use it in my personal life as well, because it works with the way my brain thinks. So let's talk about paying yourself though, because that was one of the other things that you said. You said tax time, less stress, and also paying yourself consistently, which I found even businesses that have been in business for a long time or running good businesses, a lot of times business owners are not paying themselves. And it's like this really, it's just, I'm always like, what? So anyway, can we talk about that, Brittney? Because I think that is a thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Let's talk about it.
Well, no, they don't. So what I actually have seen is people run this awesome business and it's making so much income and I'm so excited, but then they don't even pay themselves. There's always reasons why. They have a fear. Sometimes people have a fear if they take money out of their business is going to fail. But literally you started the business to pay yourself, I hope. Otherwise, it's a hobby. A self-funded hobby is what it is if you don't pay yourself. And hobbies are great, but you don't work full-time or 20 hours a week on a hobby that you're not going to get something out of. That is huge. So now like the practical piece, like how do you pay yourself? You need to figure out either a dollar amount or a percentage of what you bring in each month, how much that number is going to be. And then you just literally can write yourself a check from your business account, deposit it in your personal. You can make a bank transfer. Either of those methods work to pay yourself. There's no right way, as long as you're an LLC. If you're an S Corp, that's a whole nother thing. Go talk to a tax accountant. You need more specific help because you'll pay yourself as an employee. But we won't get into that right now. Just come up with a dollar amount that you know is sustainable year round. Just pay yourself that amount, or just say, hey, I'm going to pay myself 50% of whatever comes into my business this month. And whatever it is, if you have a great month, you get paid more. If it's a little less, you get paid a little less. You just decide what works for your life. Some people really like the consistency of like, I know that I get $3,000 a month from this business and it helps them to plan in their personal life and their personal budget. You can really go either direction, but please pay yourself. And you are your business's most important person. Like, you started this business. It wouldn't be here without you and the hard work you've put into it. So maybe you already have contractors or employees and you're consistently paying someone else. So why aren't you paying yourself?
I think as you start gaining team members and some of this starts to be a convert. When I talk to other agency owners and they're really saying, well, I have this team, so now I'm paying everyone else. And who gets cut first is you as the business owner. Are there any ways to be more, to either budget better ahead of time with those, like the savings account that you said, where the business owner themselves are not always the one taking the hit here? I'm just curious what your thoughts are there, because that also seems to be a conversation that I've heard quite often as people are, growing their team and moving at a fast rate. And the last person that gets a piece of the thing is the person who started it. So would love to talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's really important before you hire someone to figure out if you can afford it. Because some people want to grow so fast, they hire so fast, and then they're the ones who take the hit. Like you said, there is such a thing as growing too fast. Now, there are times where you're going to step out and you're going to say, this person is the one I need. Long-term, this is going to work out. But right now, for temporary time, I need to take a pay cut. Okay, I can do it I'll let it slide if it's just a couple months. But if this is going to be your new life, then you need to think of ways to raise your prices, cut other expenses if there's something else you could cut. You have to not cut yourself. Don't let yourself be the first place where you go, oh, I'll just cut my salary so I can hire this amazing person. Don't let that be your first reaction. But definitely put planning into the numbers before you're hiring contractors and employees, and make sure. And it goes back to budgeting how much can be for business expenses versus how much is for your pay. And don't cut into your pay to cover the business's expenses. But it is so common to get into that growth phase. I see this a lot also with like education, you know, like big ticket conference or that kind of thing, where people will put money out for these things that are amazing and they'll help you grow, but it's just too soon in their business. You really need to make sure your business can sustain what it already has before you overreach into something that's going to put you in a lot of debt. And yeah, it's kind of a delicate walk. You need someone to walk through this with you, really, because sometimes some people need an accountability for that, or they just need the help. Like, I need some advice. I want to hire this person, but they're a little bit expensive for what I was thinking. What do you think? And just crunching the numbers together is very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's a delicate balance, right? Because there's been times in my business where it's like, okay, this is something that I really need, or this person is something really, really need, but I know my return on investment is going to be so good, right? And then other times it's really coming back to what you're saying of like kind of just walking the line, because there's times in our business that can feel so expansive. And then there's other, where we can just keep doing things. There's other times where maybe at the start of your business, we're really trying to figure things out, where we really just have to be really thoughtful. And so I'd really appreciate having you on my team, having a really good, I changed CPAs, really like having a good CPA that, can sit down and really do thoughtful planning with me, because small, that fail statistic that I talked about earlier, I hate that. I'm on a mission to help change that, because small businesses to me are the world shifters, and we need people in these businesses to survive. But a lot of that comes back to
And the main reason that they fail is cash flow problems. And that means you have too many expenses, not enough income. There's a whole list of cash flow problems you can have, but that's what it comes down to. So it's so important to have this piece. Like, you need an amazing website. You need a presence on social media, all these things that you need. But if you don't have a solid financial foundation, all these things are just like fancy on the outside, and the inside of your house is crumbling down. So you really it's not the pretty part. No one really sees it but yourself and your tax accountant. So it's not like the nice, frilly part of having a business, but it's so important for the structure.
Tell me, Brittney, when you started your business, because you have a master's in accounting, right? You love numbers. Was this something where you were like, I am going to become an entrepreneur after school? Or what was the drive that got you here? Because I always love to know that story about how'd you get here?
It's kind of interesting, because when I was in college, I was like, I want the corner office, the company car, like all this corporate America, high-rise building, all this stuff. But as I think I was in the last year of getting my master's degree, 2 people I knew needed a bookkeeper for their new businesses. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll go to their house and do it. This was 11 years ago now, that I went to their house and worked on their computer and did their books for them. And I was like, oh, I really like the small business thing. And I'm also like a homebody, and I don't like dressing up. So forget it. I have an office now. It has a window, but no corner, but it's okay. I think that's when it really truly came down to it. I was like, I can still do the things I want to do. And I feel like I can have a greater impact, because I work with people like you who I can actually interact with the direct client. When you're working in more of the big corporate America thing, you may not even talk to the end client. Or you're talking to someone who also works for another business, a faceless business. So you don't have someone who's really invested. That's the other piece. It's like numbers sometimes are like said to be boring, and they're no fun. But it's not just boring numbers. It actually does change the way that these small business owners can live. When your spouse sees that you're bringing in a steady paycheck, they're like, wow, that's really awesome. Or you can fund a vacation that you guys really wanted to go on. Or there's just so many things that it helps the small business person that I really love. And I get to choose who I work with. So I get to work with people like the amazing Amy. And like, that's my life. I get to work with amazing people every day. And I'm really thankful that I get to do that.
I love that. I love that it was like right out of college and you figured this out and dove right in. I know you've done a lot of education and you have certifications and a lot of amazing things. What is one piece of business advice that someone has either given to you or that you wish you knew, maybe not right when you were starting, but as you were really kind of starting to up-level your business? Like, is there something that you just love to hold on to or pass on to people?
Yeah, there's two. So first, when I first started my business, I don't know where I got this from, but I thought that after my first post on Instagram, putting it out there to the world, like the next month I was going to be fully booked. I don't know where that came from. I think I was looking at other people who were way further along in their journey and just being like, oh, this is going to be me. I wish I would have known it's going to take time. So just transparency, it took 9 months to get my first official client after I officially started my business in, 2017, I think it was. 2017. It took 9 months to get my first client from going out there, like from my website and my social media. I already had a few of people that I knew, but like growing took a lot longer than I expected. But the time that I put in was well worth it. Then the second piece is you need two groups of people around you, and that is people in your profession who can understand the struggles that you are going through, and like it's people you can ask questions. If you get stuck on something, you need someone to be able to help you. So I actually have a CPA friend who always is mentoring me. My dad also was an accountant for a business for his working life. So I have him. And then I also have a group of bookkeeper ladies that I'm really close to that we can always exchange encouragement, information, like, hey, I just saw this cool thing, check this out. And then you need a group of people who aren't in your profession, who are just business owners and get it. And you're like, I'm having a bad day. My to-do list is 3 miles long and I'm overwhelmed. Just whatever, pray for me, help me, whatever it is that you need. You need the two groups of people to help you.
Yeah. I love both of those pieces of advice because I do think with social media, it's so easy to be fed this story, right? That it can happen overnight, which it can. But for most business owners, it does take time, and it takes time to, I think, become the entrepreneur that you want to be. I think so much about business is about who you are being in your financials, in your business, and really stepping into that identity. And that can take some time to figure out along the way. So I love that point about time. Thank you for being honest about that, because I think so many people like to gloss over some of that, or they have a different story, right? Which is really inspiring and fun, but there's both in business, which is really powerful.
Oh, yes. And I think people need to know that it takes time to build something. But once you build something solid, I'm almost 6 years in, and I wouldn't trade that 1 year that was really hard when I was starting. I wouldn't trade that in for my corner office in the high rise, because now I get to have so much freedom with having this business. There's just so many things that I get to do I couldn't do if I had one of those corporate jobs, which is great if you're a corporate person, but it's just not for me.
Yeah. I think freedom's a really big deal, and it's one of your top values, and it's definitely part of what you do for your clients, right? Part of this and understanding your numbers and really being thoughtful with them is so you can have whatever freedom it is that you're looking for, right? Which I think is great.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Brittney, is there a favorite business or marketing or mindset book that you love as well, that you like your clients, well, besides Profit First or Profit First?
Yeah, well, that was
that you love, that you
that was the one.
That was okay. It's such a good
book. But I have so many, like my shelf is full. So Donald Miller, which I know you love, and I found it because of you. So all of those books by Donald Miller are really good. But I think right now, if I just had to recommend a book to someone, it's Atomic Habits. James Clear wrote it. So that's the one that I would say is really good for just like life in general, but business, like setting up good habits for your business. And I just really like that. It was a very good book. But my top is always Profit First. Like money. Okay, there's your money book and there's your non-money book.
Well, I think both of them are really great and they go together, right? Habits are being formed when you do stuff like that. So I think that's great. Do you recommend your clients read Profit First, or if they come to you and they haven't worked with you yet, can you just help them with that process without them needing to quite understand all of that book? Tell me where you'd like to recommend people if they're thinking about working with a bookkeeper like you that can help them really.
Yeah, so I have everyone. Some people do it, some people don't. And some people want to, some people don't. And it's fine, whatever. However they want to manage their own business, that's fine. But yes, if they're coming in, especially if they're coming in with money struggles, it's something I say, hey, what if we do this? Read this. Or sometimes I'll just say, hey, this is how it works. Can we do something like this? And they say yes or no. But I really do try to tailor it to each person, because there are some people who are really good at managing their money with the one account, and I don't want to disturb that. But then other people are like, please just have a tax savings account. Like that's what I try to get every person to do. Like, let's have an account where we save for taxes. If I can get them to do that, I just feel so happy.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. And I want to just affirm you and thank you, because you've been so great about like working with everyone else on my team to really make sure things are buttoned up, and the peace of mind that you bring people. Well, and by people, I mean me. I have so much more peace of mind now that I'm working with you. And you were really, I mean, when I think back, you were talking earlier about, your website or social media and all this stuff. You can do so much of that at the beginning in different ways, but like you were one of my very first official quote unquote, like hires in before I did a lot of other things, because it just brought so much foundational piece to my life. So just wanted to thank you so much for playing such a role in my business. Couldn't have gotten here without you every month.
I love that.
But Brittney, is there anything else that you think people should know as, I think starting up is, its own kind of a thing, but as you're really looking at that next level in your business, maybe you've hit the $500,000 mark and you're going towards the next level. Is there something in there that you think people should know from your perspective, if we haven't already talked about it, that would be really helpful?
Well, I think if you've hit that mark, the $500,000 mark, and you haven't hired someone to do your books, unless you're like this amazing person who has it all together and you have it ready for your tax person, then sure, keep going. But you really need a system. And once you've gotten to that level, spreadsheets aren't going to cut it anymore. You really need a system. So you need a system for people to pay you. You need how you're going to pay other people. You need so many financial systems in place. So I think that in order to up-level, there's so many people that get to that point with just like kind of piecing things together and just like making things work. But you really need like a professional system. So like say QuickBooks Online is what I love. It lets you do everything in there. You can invoice people in there. You can pay people in there. It's like all the things are in one place, instead of like piecing together like PayPal is over here and Stripe is over there, which can work and you can implement them. But just having a system that works for your business and making sure that it is streamlined so that you're not scattered. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Like you don't want to be scattered anymore. You really need to be streamlined, especially when you get to that point in your business. And right from the start, I didn't mention this before, separate your business and personal finances. You need 2 accounts for everything. You don't use your credit card for business on your personal stuff. Once in a while you mix up, okay, but don't make it your habit, because it makes everyone's life complicated, especially yours and your tax person. You just want to keep that separate. And so if you've gotten to like the $500,000 mark and you're still doing that, like make that your next thing. Eliminate mixing the two. Keep them separate.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that professionalization of your business at the beginning, and then as you keep up leveling, what systems do you need in place? Who do you need on the team? Who else do you need to be helping you look and make sure you don't have the blind spots? I think that's great advice. I love that for all aspects of your business at that level. So,
oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like if you want to grow, then you have to put in these foundations. And I personally, once you hit like a point where you're making 25 to 50,000, you already need something like QuickBooks. Spreadsheets are just going to be too tedious to enter all your income and all your expenses. You really need something that is a system to contain all of that information. And I'll just say, this is the first I've said anything publicly that I'm going to have something coming for do-it-yourself bookkeepers, probably in the fall. So for people who need extra support and aren't ready to hire yet, you just have to stick around because it doesn't have a name yet, but there's a foundation laid in my brain. So I'm really excited.
I love that.
Have something coming up.
Well, when that time comes, let me know. We'll make sure we link it to this podcast so people can check. But yeah, Brittney, I just thank you so much for being on here with me and sharing your wisdom, and just thank you for the role that you're playing in the world, because it really is. Numbers are so important. They're so important to the health of the business. And I know if all of your clients feel the same way I do, we're all just thrilled that you're helping us. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's clients like you that make my life basically a dream.
Yeah, well, it's just so nice. And this is so fun to get to talk to you because, again, we really do everything over email. So this is what a joy. But well, Brittney, thank you again for joining me today and for sharing your wisdom with us. And yeah, I can't wait to share your offer as soon as you get that figured out with everyone. So share it with me and we'll share it with everyone.
Oh, I will. Thank you so much for having me, Amy. It's been amazing.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon, Brittney.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Business Origin Stories. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Join me on Instagram and make sure to sign up for our weekly email.